So welcome to tier lists for advances. I thought since everyone else is doing one for randoms and other such, I thought I'd just do one for advances. This is the MotoGG's website, obviously, and right now you can't edit this because I think it's in the beta stage. So right now we're just saying S tier is the meta, A tier is used sometimes, B is basically don't use unless you don't have the tanks above, C tier is just avoid at all costs, basically, because they're crap, and D is just artillery, probably. So first, mouse. Right now it is meta. Obviously, type 5 is still a thing, but I prefer mouse in some scenarios. For example, Proco mid, I prefer having mouse there because I feel like the gun is a bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? More dependable, I guess, than Type 5. Obviously, the Type 5 can do wicked things with its HE against maybe you can blind shot an EBR for like a 1000. And I feel like with a mouse, you can shoot the rails if you decide to dump over the mid. Obviously, D is artillery. E100, again, I think it's fallen out of meta, but I still think it's a very good tank and definitely can be used sometimes. For example, you can use it on Himmel. You can also use it on Proco mid because, you know, that DPM is better and your also turret armor, I would say, is overall better than a mouse. A mouse can't really peek that well in front of things with its turret. An E100 can definitely still show its turret and peaks. Like, for example, if I had a game recently where I was a mouse and I was peeking onto the 3 line on Proco, and they were just going through my turret on IS7s were going through my turret on the mouse. In an E100, I don't think they would ever pen me, and I could probably just farm them. Jaegeru, probably B, or, I mean, probably just avoid, to be honest. I think E4 is just better than this tank. It's still probably playable, so maybe it's like in A tier, but I prefer E4. It's a bit more mobile, has a turret. So, but you know, if you can use it on Ents, you could use it on Himmel as well, and maybe, I mean, it was used at one point on Fishers, but not anymore. E50M. I have seen quite a few clans play these tanks. More as like a not a alternative to a Sturv, but kind of used in that kind of form, like kind of like when K91 was buffed, people started using it as a like an alternative to an STRV because you know it's better in like an endgame scenario. Same thing for the E50M. However, this thing just doesn't really have the DPM really, so I would probably just not play it. Leo, I think a Sturv is just better than it. It is still playable. A Leo, I just think the Sturv camera rating is better. You're shooting at longer ranges, so your accuracy matters more. So having a Sturv is better. Grill, obviously, why would you play this tank? Eclipse plays this tank all the time in my advances because he's an animal. I think he's done with grinding it now, so hopefully he won't play it anymore. Panzer 7, I mean, there's just better heavy tanks than it, so why would you play it? Whole armor's crap. Well, the side plate on the turret is bad. RHM, there's no point in using this. Shockingly, an EBR exists, so why would you play RHM? KPZ, like, as much as I don't like this tank kind of has everything you would want from a heavy tank. That's like, it's like a worse Dravik. So it's like, if you don't have a Dravik, you probably could swap it with a KPZ, but meh, basically. A Dravik is just better than it. It has a better turret armor. So yeah, why would you play a KPZ? Right, next is Phoenix. I have seen some strats when I played with Band. We had some strats with the Phoenix. So if you have a purpose for it, it could be playable. But it is just, you know, it is very risky to play because you can just get immediately killed because, you know, you have paper turret. Squirtle's not in the game right now. VKK, I mean, I probably put it in meta tier. Mostly because, you know, it is kind of a counter to the Type 5 Type 5s that are in the game right now. It's being used obviously a lot on Ensk, and it is sometimes used on Himmel. It is used on Himmel probably 8 line normally, just to counter E100s or whatever they have there. But yeah, a good tank. Russia, IS4, IMO, this tank is meta. It is, obviously, I've used it for a while now. I got I saw it being used by Pandora, which is a rivals team, and I saw it being used there, so I was kind of interested. I did use it. I was using it after TP got nerfed. When the TP got nerfed, I was starting to use IS4s. Or no, was it before 60p nerf? Or buff, sorry. I can't remember. No, I think it was after Chief nerf. Actually, yeah, it was after Chief nerf I started using IS4s for a bit on Himmel. And then I stopped using them because 60p came in the meta, and now 60p is now nerfed again, or got nerfed. IS4 is kind of IMO back in the meta. I think this tank is quite underrated, to be honest. I think Himmel, it kind of does everything you'd want. It's kind of like a better 279 because it has more health, has the same gun. I would say probably more reliable armor because 279. I think nowadays, I think 279 is just a bit too weak with its upper plate. But obviously 279 is still fine, but I think IS4 is just kind of better than it, and it can side scope as well, which is very nice to be able to do. IS7 obviously does meta. Obviously, IS7 with Dravik is the meta right now. It is basically used on every game, and there is no reason not to use one, basically. Artillery, 268. I think 268 is not very good. I know I went through some time of testing it on Fisherman's Bay when Ho-Ri got nerfed, but I think it's just a bit. The speed is really nice. The gun is not amazing because of the shell velocity, and the gun depression is not great either. Obviously, it has no armor, but that doesn't particularly matter. But it's just kind of meh. I think Ho-Ri is still probably better than it and a bit more reliable. I would even say WZTD is probably even the same, really, and I'd rather play that. T62A is trash. 9.0. Honestly, 9.0 has fallen out completely out of meta. I would not say use it at all now. I think if you want to use something like a 9.0, I'd rather just have a 260. And most of the time, I'd rather not have a 260, and I'd rather just have a Dravik. I think Dravik is just better than a 260 right now. Mostly because you don't really need... When you're picking a 260, it's like, when do you need the 340 heat pen? Very rarely. And I don't really see a point in taking a 260 over a Dravik at the moment. And a 260 is better than a 9.0, so why would you ever pick a 9.0? As well as next tank, 140 obviously got buffed. I still think it's not really that playable. Well, it's playable, but I'd rather just have a 260 or a Dravik than a 140. Obviously, the DPM of the 140 is very nice, and in a pack, it can do very well. I'd rather just have more health and more armor, because having 140 armor, it's kind of like not a glass cannon, but obviously your hull is paper compared to a Dravik, which can bounce stuff, and the turret on a Dravik is better. So I don't see why you'd pick a 140. The LT, I mean, yeah, EBR exists. Why would you play it? Why would you play this? 430U. I hate this tank. Personally, I think it's trash. And it has no DPM. The armor's good, but again, why would you play this tank over an IS7 or a Dravik or an IS4? V4, obviously there was a time this was meta, but right now, I don't think it's meta. The hit points, if it had more hit points, I think it could be meta, but it has like, what, 1.9k base? That's pretty terrible, to be honest. As well as, it has the cupola. Obviously, the armor can be really annoying against people that don't know where to aim. But against good players, you will just get penned in the cupola, and you will not have a fun time. 705A, it's probably just B, or playable sometimes. I think personally, I'd rather just have an IS4 than it. But, if you have a corner that you need something to side scrape off for a strat, probably the best tank for it in the game. K91, kind of the same as the other mediums. I would just take, like IMO, I thought it was very weird that people went through a phase of using K91s. I didn't particularly like it. I think a Savage is much better than it for the role. Because, 90% of the time you will be sniping, and the K91's gun is not reliable at all. For that 10% of the time where you are needed to go in or push something. Obviously, the Canadian one is better, but that's 10% of the time, so I'd rather just have a Stuv. 277. Again, it just has better tanks than it. 277 is just like a weaker. It has more health than a 260. I would say weaker overall armor, however. Turret's a bit better than I would say a 260 because the shot trap on the 260, but it's just not as good as an i7, and I don't see why on earth you'd really use a 277 unless you don't have either of them. But it's still fine if you don't have an i7 or a 260. SC2, obviously this tank is just not great. It's slow. Why would you pick it over like an E100? 780. Obviously this was used a lot. Not a lot, but it was used quite a bit. Maybe at the start of this year. I know in Band, again, we used this tank quite a lot, and it was very good. However, there's a Dravik that exists, or Dravets, sorry, Czech speakers, that exists now, and I don't see why you'd play this tank over a Dravik. Overall, I think the Dravik gun is better. I can't remember the stats of either gun, but the Dravik gun feels a bit nicer. And the Dravik is a bit faster as well. So 780, if a Dravik didn't exist, I think 780 would still be probably a little bit in the meta, but it just can't be at the moment. ST, I mean, I think it's a fine tank, but I don't see why you'd play it ever in advances, because a 9.0 exists, and well, the 140 exists, and if you don't have a 140 and you don't have a 9.0, then you shouldn't be playing comp. I don't think you should have at least an i7 or a 260 or a 277 before you start playing medium tanks. 279, it's not meta, but it's used in some positions, like Fisherman's Bay on south side, if you're going to the left side of the building, or the L-shaped building, or just from both sides, I guess. And there's some position where, it can just sit on a house above you and it will just farm you. But against good players, it will get Cupola sniped over time. V5, I think this tank is trash. I don't see why on earth you would play this tank. Yeah, I mean, nothing else really to say. It's the worst version of a 260 IMO. God help you if you spend 15k bonds on it. 452k, same kind of thing. I'd rather play a 780 than a 452k. Obviously, the armor of the 452k is better. However, it gets set on fire all the time. It gets ammo racked. You need to use experimental HP on it, at least. And then you need, obviously, turbo and rammer for comp. And that makes the gun handling terrible. I hate this gun without stabs. I mean, I even hate the gun with stabs, so I think it's trash. However, you could maybe use it sometimes. You could maybe put it in sometimes. I mean, I think Volgus used it in window on Himmelsdorf, and that's probably the best position for it because, it has no cupola. It will just slowly kill people. 260. Yeah, I think there is just Dravex that just exists, so I don't see why you'd play a 260 anymore. Unless you need that heat pen, there is no reason to play a 260 IMO anymore. Other than, if you need the speed to get away from a position, I don't know, you're doing a full 1-2 on Miro, and you want to send something towards the 9-0 just to have some presence there. Obviously, a 260 is faster than a Dravets, so that'd be the only time I would use it if you need it to basically run away. T22 medium, yeah, I mean, it just doesn't have any DPM. The armor's nice, but good players will just pen it. And why not just have an i7? It does the same thing, but better, with a lot more health. America. Artillery, E5. I think it's still used sometimes. I haven't seen a lot of them recently. However, I still think it's a good tank. And if you need a DPM heavy tank, it is still good. However, the Dravik still exists, and I think it's pretty similar on DPM, I think. Yeah, so the E5 has 300 more DPM than a Dravix, so the Dravix is kind of starting to creep on the E5 as well, and overall I think obviously armor is better on Dravik as well. But that heat pen is kind of nice to have if you're sniping or needing to pen things. E4, kind of hard. I would say probably just A for now. It's used basically only on Himmel. I've started to use it a bit on Fisherman's South, though I'm probably going to change that because the purpose I brought it for hasn't really happened once, so I probably will just put it out. But it is kind of nice on Himmel against the Type 5 meta and other heavy tanks because you kind of just auto pen them basically. E3, very situational tank. Obviously, very slow, but amazing armor. But right now, I don't think many people are using this. The only place would be Himmel and Ensk, and more likely Ensk. Right now, Himmel, there's kind of no reason to take it other than I guess you can counter VKKs with it if you put them 8 line or 3 line, but I'd rather just have an E4 than have something else spotting. Pattern, yeah, obviously it's just not useful in any way. TV7 heavy, I have seen it used sometimes, but I don't use it myself. I think it's just a bit too slow to be used, but it's still a fine tank if you're using it on a Himmel. But yeah, that's kind of like the only place you can really use it. M60, yeah, it's a better pattern, but like, why would you pick it? If you want a sniping tank, then take an SDRV. That's really all to say. Sheridan, yeah, I mean, just why would you pick this tank? EBR exists. M5 yeah, I don't like this tank. Honestly, I don't know why people started using it. I think this tank is kind of poo. People love to take it on Sand River east side, but I just think why would you play it? Honestly, like the hull armor is crap. Obviously, like the only reason you use it is for 12 degrees gun repression. That's it. But most of the time, you will not ever use the 12 degrees gun repression. So, what's the point, really? MBTB, kind of the same as Tifton Heavy. It's used maybe sometimes, but why would you play this tank? It can be used on Himmel, obviously, but I don't really see any other place for it. Obviously, it can't snipe up at anything because of the double shot, but at close range, it's very lethal. E6, yeah, I mean, why would you play this tank? I think it used to be played on mines, north when you were going full hill in the little cubby bit, but mines is no longer in the map pool for some reason. So it's like, why would you ever take this tank? It has no armor, and it's meant to be a DPM heavy or DPM medium. Yeah, you're not sniping with it, so there's no reason to take it. Stinger. I guess we'll just put it next to the Deep Heavy. Okay, France. Bat chat. Probably it can be used sometimes, only basically Cliff and Himmel if you're going hill. Or just want a tank on the hill that's not a CS. But, it's still fine. Nothing really wrong with it, but I think a CS is just a bit more, or just better than it because it has a bit more speed. So it's like, why would you take a bat jet really? Because it can't really clip out anything in one clip anyway. So 50B, obviously it's still used a bit on Himmel and Cliff. Can't think of any of the maps, but personally on Himmel, I don't like taking 50Bs anymore. I'd rather just have the constant DPM in the fight, but that's just me personally. Obviously, people can use 50Bs if they want to, but I just hate having the downtime of the 50Bs. Most of the time, if you're going full hill with 50Bs, they're kind of pointless because they just get focused out and die. So, but I don't know, maybe that leaves the fully non-auto-loading tanks alive with the constant DPM. So up to you, obviously, but for me, I don't like 50Bs, but still playable. And obviously on Cliff you can use it still to shoot up the hill or shoot the ball. Foch 155 is pointless. Why would you play this tank? Foch B exists, and we'll just put the Foch B here. Same as 50B. Basically, I mean, basically only used on Cliff to again either shoot the bowl or the hill. But it's very good. I prefer taking it over 50B IMO, especially if I'm on Cliff, because I feel like I can take only one Foch instead of double 50B, and I basically roughly get the same amount of clip damage. But obviously, if you want a big punish on the hill or bowl, you take double Foch B and you do what 4.8k damage if you've hit every shot. 30B trash tank. Hopefully, Wargaming will buff it at some point. M4. Yeah, I mean they're just better heavy tanks. Dravik exists basically, so tank is meaningless. Yeah, 105. I bet a 105 exists, so yeah, why would you play that tank? And yeah, EBR, obviously the best light tank in the game right now. So why would you play anything else for a light tank? Right, British FV. Like you could maybe use it in some positions, I guess, for the gun, but IMO, I would just take a Badger if you're just gonna put him somewhere. A Badger is just kind of better than it. The Badger at least has more DPM to start off with, but at least it has armor compared to the FV, which has no armor. I know at some point Band were using it on 1-2 on Proco because of the gun, but I'd probably just put a Badger there if I was the FC in that team. But it still worked when we did use it, so I mean there was no really complaints over it, but I think in a slow game when you're holding the A2 pocket with an FE, you will just die a lot quicker than if it was a Badger. Scent. Yeah, I mean, just why would you play this tank? I have no idea. If you want a medium tank, you pick a 140 basically, or a 90, so, or a 260. So yeah, FV trash, artillery trash, FE other trash. I mean, you can be funny and use one on Cliff South, but I don't see the point. I'd rather just take a Foch B. Chieftain. I know it was used for a bit when it came out on Muro and some other maps when you were camping, but yeah, it has good DPM but no armor, so I'd rather just have a Badger if I'm camping. And if I'm not camping, then why would you pick this tank? Because it's very slow. S-Conk, basically the same thing but with less DPM, so why would you play this tank? Dravik exists, so why would you play an S-Conk? Badger, yeah, we'll put it in B because it's used sometimes. Or, well, I guess we'll put it A, I guess. Will we? Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it in A because it does actually sometimes get used, especially on Muro camps. On more north Muro camps. So, yeah, we'll put it there. Concept 5. I don't see why you'd play it over an SJRV. So, yeah, it goes into C. Right, Cano. I don't think it's meta, but I think it's very good. It's used on Sand River, can be used on Proco Mid as well, and some other maps you could use it as well, maybe Muro. So I think it's definitely a good choice. I use it personally on Sand River because I just that turret armor on the K line is just very helpful. Because same as the concept, why would you pick this tank over an STRV? I don't know. Chief, the original. Personally, I would just put it in B. It can be used in some scenarios. I mean, some people use it on Muro and Sand River, but I'd rather just have a can opener if I need that like hold down tank, and if I want like a bit of mobility and still have a hold down. Dravik exists, so why would you play a chief? Other than if you need that extra 2 degrees of counterpression, but I don't see why you need that extra 2 degrees half the time. Manticore, yeah, it's just. I mean, if you're camping, I mean, I guess I'll put it because you're camping. You can maybe use it once or twice. Um, but most people just take an EBR instead because an EBR can basically do 95% of what a Manticore can do. Griffin, um, it's kind of slept on a little bit. I think it's actually quite a good tank. However, it just doesn't have much armor, so it's kind of like, why would you play it? Really? But the double shot is quite nice. Right, China, 1-1B, or 1-1, sorry. Yeah, it's just not great. Same as a 113. I mean, it's basically goes through half the thing. There are just better tanks than all of these tanks, all these like heavy tanks that they have. Light tank, obviously, I will just put it here as well. I mean, 5A, I guess we'll put it up one. I hate the 113. I don't think it's very good at all. This has 5 degrees of gun depression, so why would you on earth would you play that tank? At least this has 7, I think, so playable. But the thing is about this tank is that if it didn't need stabs, I think it'd be probably actually pretty good in comp. But because it kind of needs stabs to actually have a good gun, it's just like, I mean, it's just the worst Stravik. So like, why would you take this tank unless you need like so much DPM? WZ, I would say probably the same thing. I think it could be used actually on Fisherman's and maybe some other map that I can't remember. But yeah, I don't see why you'd take it really for a sniping tank, unless you for some reason need that 395 heat pen. But meh, I'd rather just keep an STRV instead and hit the shots. BZ, obviously this is meta. Cliff meta right now is basically bring 10 BZs and like some CS and some multiloaders, and you're set to go. It just has everything. It has the health. It has big alpha. Yeah, and has a okay turret. I mean, obviously it has the weak spots, but like if you miss that weak spot, you're going to bounce. So yeah, it just has kind of everything for what you need on Cliff. Other maps, I mean, it's used quite a lot on Himmel, obviously, because it can take the hill or push across courtyard. It's quite versatile, but yeah, it's just a good tank. BZT70. I'll put it in A. I have started using it on Fisherman's Bay for middle because it has pretty good pen, and so it can deal with like 279s and Type 5s, I guess, or whatever they send mid. 330 heat pen can basically go through it, as well as it has 850 alpha, which just it will outtrade anything that is in mid, basically, unless it's a Jaeger. So yeah, I just think it's very nice for out trading, and if you have 3 of them and they all hit something and pen, which might be a miracle, but if they all hit, that's basically a tank dead. So I think it's actually a good tank, and I would like to see maybe some people starting to use it on some other positions. Maybe I'll probably think about it. This is just a BZ, so I'll just put it here. This other BZ, it's not meta, but it's used sometimes. I know Adamek always takes one, and I think Lyric, the clan, there's like NT takes them, and Lyric, both Polish clans, they take them on Cliff. And well, I mean, basically Lyric always goes full mid. I think same with NT actually. They always basically go full mid and they take up all of these things for ramp, so you can get up the ramp a bit quicker because the timing of the BZ72 is like quite nice in the fact where you can just probably get up the hill in time without being punished by regular BZs because you go like 4 km/h faster. But yeah, that's basically the only use. I mean, it can also be used to boost things to the hill on Himmel. Instead of taking like double BZ to boost someone, you take this one. You take one of these instead, and you boost them in a line together. I think Danny did that with. I don't remember. It was a goldfish. I think they did that with. Uh, Quite nice for that. But it's obvious that you're doing that when you take one of these. Monkey King. It's just kind of the same as the other Chinese think there are just better things for sniping with. I mean, at some point people were using this on Fisherman's Bay, but Hori exists now, and I think STRV is still better than it. So yeah, 116. We'll put it down here. I think the DPM is just horrible. The armor is actually pretty solid, actually, but the DPM. If it had more DPM, I think this tank would actually be quite nice. But yeah, it doesn't. So kind of poo. 114. I mean, again, it's just like better TDs exist, so why play this? And this is a 5A, and this is a BR, so there's no point in putting them up. Right, STB. I think this tank is trash. I don't know why on earth you would pick this tank for any reason, to be honest. So yeah, don't pick it. Type 5, obviously. I mean, I'll put it in meta, but it's not used like all the time. But you know, it can be used on a lot of maps. Himmel, Proco, Miro mid, Proco mid, Ensk, Himmel. Are there any other maps I'm forgetting? Lots, I'm sure, but yeah, I mean, it's a good tank. I mean, I don't know why they buffed this tank to what it is now, but yeah, it's just very good. Hori, I think this will be in B for now, or A, sorry. It is used sometimes still on Fisherman's Bay and maybe some other maps, but obviously after the nerf, it's not used as much, and I think STLV is kind of taking over its place at the moment, but it's still a good tank. Type 71, I will put it B. I think it can be used sometimes, so maybe it goes up into A, but for now I'll keep it in B because the gun without the mechanic is just kind of meh. Obviously, it has very good DPM, but I'd rather just either have a can opener, because most of the time you're going to be like mid-range, really, with this, so I'd rather just have a can opener or an E5 than this thing. But it's still a decent tank, so you could maybe put it in. I'll put it in here to be nice to it. But personally, I don't play it. Where are we? Yeah, check. TVP, trash tank. Why would you play this tank? VZ, same as the kind of 113. Why would you play this tank over an IS-7? I don't know. DVB, I think it's B. It can obviously be used in some things like Fisherman's Bay, Live Oaks. It can also be used on Proco as well. But I think STRV is still better than it. But I'll put it in A, actually. But yeah, an STRV I think it still just does its job better. Tessac, yeah, I mean, why would you pick a Tessac? I mean, you could maybe spray some buildings down if you really need, or blind fire a lot of bushes, but I'd rather just not do that and not take a Tessac. Dravik, obviously, is basically the meta right now. It is slightly overtaking an IS-7. If I could put this in the front, I probably would. I think a lot of clans are starting to bring a lot more Draviks into their lineups because, I mean, it is kind of like an alternative to an IS-7. It still takes as many shots to kill an IS-7 than as it does to a Dravik. Because, you know, an IS-7 hits for 490, and the Dravik has what, like 2,500 health? 2,550, is it? I can't remember. Yeah, so it has the same health as Chief, I think, right? Yeah, I think it has the same health as a Chief, which is 2,550, and that is enough to survive 490 shots from an I7 5 times. Well, it takes a 6 shot to kill it, but you need to use Bond HP for that. But it just has so much more DPM than an I7, so, and the gun is a lot nicer. That's done for check. 60p. I think this tank is trash now. It can still be used on, I mean, Himmel, I guess. I mean, that's really it. The gun is just so horrible that it's kind of just unplayable now. Unless you're in Onslaught, I don't see why on earth you would pick a 60p when an IS-4 exists. I think the IS-4 has just taken over from TP. Yeah, the alpha is nice when you hit, but like 0.4 accuracy, good luck hitting, you know? Everything else about the vehicle is very nice. You know, it has that 750 alpha. It has good frontal armor. It has good turret. Its speed is decent enough because it has the field mod. But I'd rather just play an IS-4 right now. CS, yeah, obviously this is meta. Yeah, it's just a better bat chat, and it's like use it a lot. Himmel, Cliff, Sand River can be used as an alternative to an EPR at some point, at some on some maps, but yeah. Bliska, yeah, I just wouldn't pick it. I mean, it can be used in some maps, like Himmel. It's like okay for going hill, but personally, I would just stay away. It's also quite hard to play. If you don't know how to play it, then the player is just gonna get fucked because he might get permatracked or he just, he dies. Yeah, and that is 60p but reskinned. Uh, this should be a pretty easy list. So Cran will be in C because it's just not used. Why would you pick a Cran when there is a Dravik existing? And if you need the gun depression, if you need 12 degrees gun depression, I would pick an M5Y over this. We'll go UDES as well, same thing. If you need a ridgeline tank, I would just take a Dravik, and if you need the gun depression, I would take a Chief or an M5Y. STRV is the meta. I think it's kind of taken over most maps now. I mean, Fisherman's Bay used to be Ho-Ri and other things, but now it's most people on South are taking an STRV now, as well as it like stops an EPR from playing around. If you are South, it can kind of punish an EPR if it stays around too long doing the normal run. So the EPRs need to be careful when there's an STRV, and a lot of people are taking it from North now, so they can go A1. It's on Sand River, Live Oaks, any of the maps, Brocco, and many other open maps, basically. Which is just a very nice tank. Italy, I mean, this is basically not even worth going over. They all go here. Crocodilo is probably a rank above, I guess, but everything else is just this. All these tanks have no DPM. I mean, the Minnow has some DPM, but it has not a lot of health after the nerf as well. The turret armor is not as good. It's just, I would pick a Dravik than this every single day. Lion, again, medium tanks are just not the meta right now because it just doesn't have enough health or the armor to trade, and Caro just doesn't have DPM at all. So, yeah, that is all. I think that is everything. So, yeah, that's the list. I don't know if I can zoom out, maybe. I can't. I'll just not show D, I guess. But yeah, that's the list. I would pick basically everything in C on every map. Well, most maps, I guess. A is like sometimes it's used, and B is if you have nothing else, or if you don't have the tanks above, then you can pick on the tanks below. And C is just don't use, and D is you're throwing for your commander. But yeah, I hope that is all right, and hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next video.